So today we're going to take a look at Luxman's flagship integrated amp, the 509Z. How does it differ from the 509X? How does it compare to the best I've heard? Stay tuned, my friends. So Luxman, the last time I had a Luxman integrated amp in here was the limited edition 595 ASC. And that FOMO bug bit me, fear of missing out. It was a limited edition. It looks so cool and retro. I ordered one, I bought one. I had one here for a while. And I bought it because of my love of the previous favorite that I had from Luxman, the 590 AX2, which was an all Class A 30 watt per channel, even though it was rated to going higher into Class AB. The sound of that 590 AX2 was stunning when I had it. It's probably been a decade since I've had it, but the memory never left me, right? So when I bought the 595 ASC, it was Class A. It was billed as being possibly the last Class A from Luxman. I bought it and had it here for a while, and as I changed speakers, there were some things about it that didn't work out synergy-wise with the speakers I had eventually paired with it. It was a little tipped up in the top, and it was just a little bit too much. I like a smooth operator. I like that smooth, big-bodied, yet detailed vibe. The 595 ASC is a beautiful, beautiful integrated, but it went on its way from here. And those were the last two Luxman integrated amps I've had, the 590 AX2, which was a long time ago now, and the 595 ASE. So the amp I'm talking about today is the latest, the flagship, the best Luxman makes according to Luxman in the form of an integrated amp, based on some trickle-down technology from their big M10X power amp. This one is the 509Z. Now, the 509X was the previous version, and the 509Z is said to have a little bit of a warmer vibe, a smoother flow, a little bit more soul in that sound. So I was anxious to hear it. Dan over at Dedicated Audio contacted me and said, hey, would you like to hear the 509Z? Would you like to review it? Now, Dan at Dedicated loves Luxman. He's a big Luxman guy. He's also a sponsor of my website. He is a dealer. He sells many fine brands, but he wanted to send it over to me to see what I thought of it. Now, Dan, in his personal system at home, runs the 509Z. Matt, an employee at his shop, and I believe a family member, what does he have at home? The 509Z. So if a shop owner who can have anything he wants from his selection chooses the 509Z for his personal, I was really excited to hear it. And I heard that the first few watts, up 5 or 10 watts, are in Class A. So I was hoping that this unit, this 509Z, would take me back more to the sound of the 590 AX2 that I loved versus the more tipped up sound of the 595 and the 509X even. So they sent it along to me. The amp came in, and when I unboxed it, I was just blown away by the attention to detail. And I'm going to show you some shots of this amp. It's absolutely beautiful. The construction is immaculate. Each part, each dial, each knob is smooth and silky. There's nothing cheap feeling about this amp at all. When I look at it next to my Nagra HD preamp, which is a 72,000 retail preamp, the Luxman looks snazzier. The silver is shinier. The overall presentation, it looks like a Swiss watch kind of build. So Luxman hit it out of the park with the 509Z, and that's the same with the 509X really in these looks. Luxman knows how to make a really good looking amplifier. Now, I'll talk about some of the features before I get into the sound. And I did try this with a variety of speakers. I will tell you what they sounded like. But let's talk about the specs. So this puts out 120 watts into 8 ohms. It puts out, I think, 220 watts into 4 ohms. It's got a lot of power. It feels effortless when you're using it. So I believe this can drive almost any speaker, because a lot of speakers, it's not really the watts that count, it's the current that counts. And this Luxman 509Z is a high current amp. So it's pushing that juice to the speakers, which results in a sense of effortless power. The Luxman 509Z weighs in at 63 pounds, so it's not a 100-pound beast, but it's also not like a HiFi Rose RA280 that's kind of light and easy to move. 63 pounds is still pretty hefty, and when I was lifting it off my floor to put it on my cabinet, I let out a big you know, that groan you make when you lift something heavy. So on the front of the Luxman 509Z, you have a lot of dials there at the bottom. And one thing that's unique about Luxman is this piece especially, is it has tone controls for not only the treble, the bass, but also for mid-range. So you can tailor that to your needs. And this is not like the tone controls of a 1980s AVR receiver. These are super refined, and when you change them, the effect is minimal, and it doesn't take away from the imaging or the performance, the holographic imaging, I should say, which this does very well. It doesn't take away from that. A lot of older amps that I remember using tone controls on, you turn up the bass and it would just make the bass boomy, right? This does not do that. It just makes the bass a little richer, a little more bigger. It doesn't ever bring the bass boom. So the tone controls here are done really, really well, and it has that new mid-range dial, which is pretty unique. You don't see that on other amps, at least I haven't. Now there's also a loudness control, which a lot of people love, and if you're listening, say, at low late night volume level, say you're in your room at midnight or in a part of your house at midnight and you can't turn it up because you don't want to wake up your kids, you don't want to wake up the wife or whoever's in the house. Click on the loudness control from the remote control and you will get the full bass frequencies and treble performance even at the lowest of volumes. It allows you to hear all of those frequencies even when you're listening low. So that's pretty cool. And again, it doesn't take away from the sound. So on the front of the Luxman, there's also a button that says line straight. When you push that button, it removes those tone controls and all of that. It takes it out of the circuitry. So it just eliminates it. And this is really known for purists, people who do not want to use any kind of tone controls whatsoever. It pretty much eliminates them from the system. And I noticed if I had all of the tone controls flat, right dead center, I was pretty much listening in that mode. But when you hit the line straight mode, you do hear a little bit more snap of clarity and maybe spaciousness, but it's very little. Most people would not even hear it. But that button is there for those who don't want any tone controls in the system. So that's a way to basically eliminate them if you don't want to use them. The 509Z also allows you to run two sets of speakers. You can run speaker A, speaker B, or speaker AB. Say I wanted to wire up a second set of speakers outside, right? I could then switch that to B, and if I have a gathering out here, I could just have those speakers being powered. Say I want to run both of them for some reason. Say somebody's in here listening and somebody's out there listening. You can put it to A and B and run both speakers at the same time. On the back of this unit, you have dual speaker outputs. Also on the front, you will see a control for the Phono stage. There's a built-in Phono stage here. I did try it, but you have a selection for moving magnet, moving coil high output, moving coil low output. Now, I believe this is hard set at 100 ohm for moving coils, so take that into consideration. I tried it with a U-turn Orbit, I think it's 3 SE or something like that turntable. I've had it here for a while, year and a half. I am not big into turntables these days. I'm all in on streaming, but I do keep a turntable here so I can test things such as this. Now, this table only has an Ortophon Blue on it, nothing fancy. But going into the moving magnet Phono stage, it sounded really, really good. Probably as good as some $1,200 externals that I've heard from moving magnet. I wasn't able to try it with moving coil, so I cannot speak on that, but it is there. It has a full-fledged Phono stage built in. And Luxmans have always been known for their really good internal Phono stages. Some companies put garbage in there, and I'll just say garbage, because that's what I've heard in only a few of these integrateds. They're usually on the lower cost level, but once you get up to something like this, a flagship from a well-known Japanese company, and this is made in Japan, you're gonna get something really good. So the Phono stage is really, really good here. So on the left side, you'll see your input selector. There's 4 RCA inputs. There's 2 XLR inputs, and that dial just is so silky smooth and it snaps into place. The selection you choose has a little light that glows so you know where you're at. Speaking of lights that glow, this also has the classic Luxman VU meters. Now these project a white light. Some Luxmans project a yellow, some are blue. This one is a nice clean white light, and in between the VU meters they now went the way of AccuPhase and put the volume level in the middle in a red LED. So it shows you exactly where you're at when you're turning up the volume. Now of course some people are not going to like this, but you can turn it off with the remote as it's not even there. So it's really cool to have. I like having it there because I know what volume I normally listen at. So the next day I'll put it at the same volume level. So I like that, but you can turn it off if you don't want to see that. You can also turn out the VU meter lights, of course, if you don't want to see them, if you're listening in the dark and just want everything dark. On the right-hand side is the volume dial. Now I remember when I had the 595 ASC, the volume dial is a little smaller, and if I wiggled it, it would shake back and forth. The one on the 509Z is a little larger and it's solid as a rock. I mean, it's solid. Everything about the 509Z is solid. Now look at the top of this thing. It's a beautiful top plate. It's got those little holes carved out. They look really, really artistic and cool. And it is, I looked it over for flaws or anything. It is just perfection the way they designed this thing. So going into the back, this can also be used as a preamp if you want to hook up a different power amp to it. And you can also use it as a power amp if you want to put a dedicated preamp into it. I wouldn't recommend that though, because it sounds so good as is. And Luxman even states that this model here was designed to be like separates in one box. Now I've heard other manufacturers say this before, and sometimes it seems to be thrown around loosely, but here Luxman means it. This really does sound like separates in a box. And I will say right now that this is the first Luxman integrated that I've had, of the two others, that didn't make a little bit of noise. Now the 595 ASC and the 590AX2. The 590AX2 had a little hum, the one I had, a little buzz coming from it, but it was pretty quiet. I didn't hear it at the listening seat. The 595 ASC, on some days it would buzz. I think it was my electricity, but I would hear that buzzing sometimes with the 595 ASC. Now the 509Z is dead silent. Luxman went to great lengths this time to really eliminate any noise. There's all kinds of stuff inside of here to keep the vibration, the noise level down. And I have this thing on, it's on right now. Yeah, I can put my ear right up to it and hear nothing. This is a dead silent Luxman integrated amp, and that is the way Luxman designed it. So if you get this one, know that you're not going to hear any transformer hum or buzz, and that is awesome, because the more quiet a piece of electronics is within HiFi, the more the music comes out of that darkest background. And when it comes out of that dark black background, we tend to hear more of the details and more of those nuances within the music that we may have missed before. So before we get on more to the sound quality, what makes this different from the 509X? A lot of you may own the 509X and you're wondering, what's the difference between the X and the Z? Now, I admit I never had the X in here. Now, I had a phone call with Dan at Dedicated Audio, and he has heard both extensively. He told me that the Z is richer, more refined, a little bit warmer, right? A little bit gives you more of that oomph in there. And overall, he thought it sounded better. But let's talk about what the difference is. Now, Luxman has a new feedback engine they call Life's V1. What does that stand for? So that stands for the Luxman Integrated Feedback Engine System. Well, that's a mouthful, and I really don't get into technical mumbo jumbo. I really only care about build, parts quality, sound, and experience. But this is one of the main differences that is an improvement over the X. Now, I have a written review at my website, and I go into detail about the Life's V1, what it is, and what it does. I don't use teleprompters here, so I can't remember all these technical details in my brain, but I do have it in the written review, which is like 5,000 words, a lot of cool pictures in there, and a lot of information if you want the inner details. So I suggest checking that out if you want to dig in to the details about this stuff. This amp also uses some big, beautiful capacitors. The volume control here has been improved once again, and Luxman is known for their volume control. So the volume control here is top notch. Again, the website review goes into that in more detail. Now, Luxman in this and their other amps use what they call peel coat circuit boards. I'll throw an image up here on the screen. And there's no right corners anywhere on this circuit board. It's pretty cool. I think they call it beeline something or other. Again, technical details. But everything they do within their amplifiers at Luxman is customized for their amps. They're fully made in Japan, and they take this stuff very seriously. So all of the parts inside are top-notch, high quality, and custom made just for these amplifiers by Luxman. Finally, let's get to the sound quality. When I put it in the system, you know, these things, I used to not fully believe in burn-in. I believe in burn-in to some extent. I don't believe in it needs 500 hours of burn-in. You know, I've never noticed any difference after so many hours. But when I first put it in, it was the same thing I experienced with the 590AX2. Right out of the box, fresh, and I had my Audio Icon 12 speakers in. I was using the Nagra Streamer and the Live Micro DAC. That Live Micro DAC is awesome. So I put it in, and the Live Micro DAC is a warm, juicy, beautiful sounding DAC. It has a soul in that little box, and that DAC's under $1,000, but it may not be to everyone's taste. But when I first turned it on, I noticed it was a little sharp up top and a little lean in the bass. And I said, uh-oh, I hope it's not going to be the sharper sounding variety of Luxman. Literally after 3 hours, it started fleshing out. After 10 hours, it was really fleshed out. And after, I'd say, 15 hours, it was sounding as beautiful as it does right now. And I have over 100 and something hours on it now, maybe 150. That's a guess. So it takes a good 10, 15, 20 hours, in my opinion, to flesh out. And flesh out it did. The top end became almost silky. It was extended. It had that energy that most Luxman amps have, but it was a silky, very sweet kind of treble. The imaging was of the holographic variety with those Audio icons. I'm sitting 7 feet or 8 feet from them. They're 7, 8 feet apart. Everything was in its place in the soundstage. The imaging was beautiful. The mid-range, once it fleshed out, had a little bit of warmth to it that I didn't remember hearing in the 595 ASC. It was rich. It was textured. It had layers that went back to front. So that was really, really cool. The bass finally opened up, but the bass is not a big boomy bass as you would expect. It's tight, it's controlled, and very, very musical and tuneful. So you're hearing everything in the recording. With the Audio Icon 12s, it was a really good synergistic match. I'd say like a 90% synergistic match. I took the icons out and I put in the Pure Audio Project Duet 15 horn model that I recently reviewed. And I thought they were going to be bright with the Luxman, but nope, even those, they sounded smooth. The mid-band was, again, rich, right? And those Duet 15 horns, they project the voice out into the room really, really well. The voices are big with the Duet 15s, and that's the star of those speakers show. That's the star of the show with the Duet 15s. And the Luxman was delivering everything to them. I mean, they might have sounded with rock music. When I put on some rock music, they were a little bit bright and tipped up, but that's more a product of the recording quality. A lot of those rock music from the 80s, 90s that I like, they were recorded kind of raggedy. They can sound raggedy on any system, but they were sounding really good with the Duet 15 horns and the Luxman. I took the duets out, I put in the Bucard E50s, and they were sounding as clean as ever. Those are kind of a clean, clear speaker, but with impact, punch, and beautiful imaging. They're not of the warm variety, though they have that little bit of laid backness in the mid-range that Bucard is known for. These were having that pop, snap, drive, punch, kick, and rock music was sounding really good. It was clean, clear, direct, right? Boom. The Bucard E50s. but they were not sounding bright at all. They were not sounding warm at all. They were sounding just like they should. And the Luxman, I noticed with all these three speakers, it was providing like an energy. The energy was coming out. It's high energy amp. It's almost like you can tell it's high current because it sounds like there's an electric current coming at you. Now, everything is clean, clear, balanced from top to bottom. It's a linear amp, so there's nothing that sticks out, right? It's not going to be bloated in the mids or bloated in the bass or hot in the treble. Everything is smooth, textured, and layered. And after I heard it with all three speakers, I told myself, this reminds me the most of that 590AX2 that I love so much. But the 590AX2 on steroids with a lot more power. The weight, no matter what speakers I ran it with, and those Bucards are 85 dB efficient, so they're a little bit harder to drive, but Bucard says, guess what? They love current more than the watts. So it was driving those Bucards to some insane levels without even breaking a sweat. So the one thing that was a constant with the 509Z, it was very effortless, very in control, right? Now, I talked to Dan after I heard it and I said, wow, this is sounding really amazing. And it does equal in looks, build, sound to some extent the Nagra separates I have here. Now, the Nagra has a completely different sound, so that's why we buy these things. We pick the sound we like. We pick the aesthetic we like. And I love the Nagra sound. It's a little bit warmer. It's a little more earthy. It's a little bit more in the room. But the Luxman is about power, energy, focus, and letting you hear everything in the recording without crossing that line into analytical. The 509Z has a little bit of warmth to it and a little more body. And that mid-range area is just really, really silky and really, really sweet. So overall, I think this is the finest integrated that Luxman makes, the 509Z. They say it is, and I've only had experience with two others prior in my home. I've heard others at dealers. But this one is really, really fantastic. Some are going to say, what about compared to that T+A PA3100HV? The 3100HV is more industrial looking. If we're talking about looks, it's more industrial looking. You do more with the touch screen. It has a touch screen menu that you can deal with. I think it's touch screen. Maybe it's the remote. The T+A remote is like a freaking weapon, right? The Luxman remote is metal, and on the front it has a plastic cover over the battery, but the Luxman remote is the same one they've been selling or giving with their integrators for a long time. The T+A seems more like a tank, right? Industrial tank-like. It's like 300 watts per channel. The Luxman is more jewel-like. It's more Swiss watch-like. It's more, wow, somebody's going to come over and say, woo, you must be rich because that thing looks like it cost $1 million. My dad used to love Cadillacs back in the day, and he could never afford one. But we went into a Cadillac dealer one day, and the salesman was trying to sell him, and the salesman's like, when you own a Cadillac, it means you have arrived, right? And my dad just brushed him off. But that's what I feel like with the Luxman. If you have the 509Z, it shows you have arrived, and that's kind of silly, but that's the vibe I get from it. It's luxurious in looks, build, everything inside is just perfection, really, in the design and engineering aspect of it. And the sound is got that Luxman Japanese vibe of everything I just described. The T+A is a little warmer, a little darker shade. It has a different kind of vibe, right? A smoother top end, a smoother mid-range, or not smoother, just as detailed really, but it's just a different kind of sound. The T+A is one that looks like it could roll down a hill and survive. The Luxman could, I'm sure, but it would show scratches, of course. So they're both tough. They're both built to the high level. They both have a unique sound. But one, the T+A, is almost $25,000. The Luxman is half that price, $12,500. And let's talk about that price. A lot of you are going to say $12,000 for an integrated amp. Yeah, that's crazy. That's expensive. But you can go down to the 507Z. You can go down to a 505. Luxman has options. You can go. But as you go up the ladder, you are getting better performance. So this is for those who want the best performance they can get from a Luxman Integrated, those who love the Luxman sound and vibe, and you want the best they make in a one-box solution. That's who this is for. Now, one cool thing, Luxman just announced a 100th Centennial edition. Only 20 are made available for the United States. This is a crazy setup. It includes a black 509Z. It includes a black Luxman streamer. It includes a black, the latest Luxman turntable they have, and it includes a black CD player, and it's something like $36,000, $37,000. I was talking to Dan at Dedicated, and he said that he was able to snag serial number 1, and that's what he's settling with for his home. And that's what I mean. A dealer who sells all these awesome brands, he's choosing Luxman. He's a Luxman guy. He loves it. And that says a lot. So he's getting that, and there's 20 made available for the United States. I believe, if you want one, you can call him, or if you have questions about it, you can call him at Dedicated Audio. I'll put his phone number on the screen here. Now, Dan is a website sponsor. He has an ad on my website, and that goes to his shop. I've shopped with Dan. I've met Dan. I've been in his store. I started going to his store in Arizona when I lived there, I think 20 years ago. And so I've known Dan a long, long time. He's honest. He's great. He knows his stuff. He's a nice guy. And he can get you set up with anything from Luxman you desire. So check out dedicatedaudio.com. I was not paid for this review. I don't get commissions if you buy one. I'm sending it back in a day or two here. I already got the label to send it back. I'm going to miss it, but I have stuff in here all the time. So I'm blessed in that way. I get to hear a lot of stuff. Anyway, where was I going with this? I've listened to bluegrass. I've listened to classical. I've listened to Johnny Cash, old school country, right? On this amplifier. I've listened to electronic dance music. I try to listen to everything, and I couldn't find anything to fault. It's not a master of one, it's a master of all, and that's the best compliment I can give the 509Z. So I'll wrap this up so I don't keep blabbing along, and thank you for watching. If you like it, thumbs up, subscribe, leave a comment. That helps, with the sharing of this video. YouTube will share this to more people if people engage with it. So I thank you in advance, of course. All right, I'll let you guys go. I thank you for watching. I love you all, and I'll see you soon. Bye.